Economic data is now starting to show positive signs that inflation is starting to be capped and coming down. But how is that going to go ahead and affect the housing industry right here in the Treasure Valley? Let's go ahead and see how the Fed responded to all the data coming up right after this.
Today, the FOMC raised our policy interest rate by a half percentage point. We continue to anticipate that ongoing increases will be appropriate in order to attain a stance of monetary policy that is sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2% over time.
Yes, last week the Fed did jump in there and raise the federal funds rate again by another 50 basis points. Although better than the 75 basis points they've been hiking the federal funds rate by for the last several meetings, how is this really going to affect the housing market right here in the Treasure Valley and even across the United States? Well, let's go ahead and dive into that data, break it all down, and see what the Fed actually has in store and what their policies are going to actually do. Are we going to see a recession? Can they actually get a soft landing? We're just going to have to go ahead and dive in and break it down. But before we do, of course, my name is Mike Petras. I am your Star Realtor of Star and the Treasure Valley. And of course, if you have any further questions or you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate right here in the Treasure Valley, please feel free to reach out to me. You can get my contact information above. Send me a text, reach out, send me an email with any further questions that you got. And of course, please comment below. I'm more than responsive to any comments that you've got. And I'd also love to hear your thoughts. And honestly, let's throw out that question. What do you think is going to happen in the housing industry? Do you think the Fed is over tightened? Do you think they can come in for a soft landing? Love to hear what you got. More than responsive to the comments below. But let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the information that the Fed actually went through in this last meeting and break it all down.
In addition, we're continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet. Restoring price stability will likely require maintaining a restrictive policy stance for some time. The historical record cautions strongly against prematurely loosening policy. We will stay the course until the job is done.
So really a lot of the same jargon that we have heard from the Fed over the last several meetings, including reducing their balance sheet and of course maintaining the whole entire situation for a lot longer. But this time Powell really emphasized that reducing any of the monetary policies in any kind of significant fashion early would be detrimental. But what stands out and actually really could be the most detrimental is the runoff of their balance sheet or selling off their balance sheet. And as we can see, according to this, for the last several months, they've been only running up about $45 billion per month. But come September, they started at $95 billion, which means that if they really reduce the balance sheet in any kind of significant number and the investors aren't there to be able to soak it up, that could mean actually dumping the price, especially of MBS, which we know that if MBS price goes down, mortgage interest rates can go up, which could significantly raise mortgage rates to a scary level. I don't think that the Fed's actually going to do that, but we'll see. However, is everything that he had to say last Wednesday really all that negative?
The inflation data received so far for October and November show a welcome reduction in the monthly pace of price increases. But it will take substantially more evidence to give confidence that inflation is on a sustained downward path.
Yes, October and November's core CPI reports came out great with month-to-month over reductions in inflation and actually year over year. And October's core PCE came in great with November's right around the corner this upcoming Friday. But as you can see, the Fed wants a lot more proof.
Over the course of the year, we've taken forceful actions to tighten the stance of monetary policy. We've covered a lot of ground, and the full effects of our rapid tightening so far are yet to be felt.
Yet to be felt is the right word. Is it going to come in at a recession because you over-tightened, or can you actually get away with a soft landing? Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
Of course, 50 basis points is still a historically large increase, and we still have some ways to go. Despite elevated inflation, longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. But that is not grounds for complacency. The longer the current bout of high inflation continues, the greater the chance that expectations of higher inflation will become entrenched.
So is a 50 basis point hike still historically high? Yes. But so is also your last 3-quarter hikes that you've been doing for the last several meetings. In fact, actually what you've been doing is on pace to what has happened really in the 80s. And do we know that inflation is kind of on the entrenched side from like you said? Yeah. And do we know we have to do it for longer? Sure. And you've also already made that clear in the SEP. So we are going to anticipate that next year you're still going to get aggressive. So are we going to possibly and more than likely hit a recession? Sure. Let's take a look at this. Both liberal and conservative news media are really nervous and are ushering statistics about whether or not the recession is going to pop up. And by definition, we already know that we're in one. 2 negative quarters of GDP plus the inversion that we have between the 2 and 10-year Treasury yields. Furthermore, the Psalm rule demonstrates that when unemployment goes up 0.5% in a year, usually it's followed by a 2% increase the next year, which we know, and according to the Fed from this last meeting, unemployment went up 0.5%. So historically, will the Fed get the softening of the labor market that they want due to a recession? Most likely. And that's not going to be good for the American people, but at the same time, it will do what they wanted to do, just in the opposite direction. So when might the effects of the recession actually filter in? Well, according to the NABE, or the National Association of Business Economics, they are saying that 57% think that it's going to happen within 2023, and 52% of those economists actually think that it's going to start beginning of the first quarter of this coming up year. So in essence, pal, there's a lot of people out there that think that you've over-tightened, and according to what I can see, according to your SEP, you continue to plan on doing so. So really, I put it in personally, 95% chance of an actual recession hitting. Here's why I also think so.
What would you do if the economy slows so much that we enter a recession before we see strong, consistent signs that inflation is slowing? In other words, stagflation.
I don't want to get into too many hypotheticals, but it's hard to deal with hypotheticals. To the extent we need to keep rates higher and keep them there for longer, and inflation moves up higher and higher, I think that narrows the runway. But lower inflation readings, if they persist in time, could certainly make it more possible. So I don't think anyone knows whether we're going to have a recession or not, and if we do, whether it's going to be a deep one or not. It's not knowable. And certainly, lower inflation reports, were they to continue for a period of time, would increase the likelihood of so I would put it this way, of a return to price stability that involves significantly less of an increase in unemployment than would be expected given the historical record.
Oh, I don't want to deal in hypotheticals. Oh boy, you really kind of seem afraid of that question instead of really kind of putting yourself out and forward in front of it. Just like you said, inflation was transitory. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the data and see whether or not a soft landing might be in the picture.
Are you confident that you're seeing real progress on getting inflation under control? Are you still worried it could slip into some kind of unentrenched, upward spiral?
Right. So the data that we've received so far for October and November, we don't have we have some remaining data to get in November, but they clearly do show a welcome reduction in the monthly pace of price increases.
Well, how about that soft landing? Are things coming back down in terms of inflation? True. What else?
Goods inflation. And we see now, as we've been expecting really for a year and a half, that supply conditions would get better, and ultimately supply chains get fixed, and demand settles down a little bit and maybe goes back to services a little bit, and we start to see goods inflation coming down. We're now starting to see that in this report and the last one.
Yep. According to this chart, that's actually true too, pal.
Growth in consumer spending has slowed from last year's rapid pace, in part reflecting lower real disposable income and tighter financial conditions. But they've got to go up at a level that is consistent with 2% inflation over time, making basic assumptions about productivity. So if you look at the principal wage measures that we look at, I would say that you're 1.5% or 2% above that with current wage increases.
Lower disposable income, sure, it's because you robbed us all of it. Let's just be honest here, pal. But in terms of your wage increases, you've been complaining about that, saying that they're still high compared to the 2% inflation goal that you really want to hit. So what is it? Even though you say you want wage growth here in the United States for people, it is obviously clear throughout what you were saying on other meetings that honestly you think that people are making too much money. And what is the definition of an inflation and why are we in this inflation problem? It's because there's too many dollars out there chasing too few many products. So even though goods might be on the rise, there's still a lot of money out there, and you know that, pal. In essence, what are you doing? You're squeezing blood out of a turnip. And unfortunately, people are running out of their savings here in the United States. And on top of that, you're making it harder for business to be able to operate by raising the federal funds rate. So what is that going to equate to? More or less that recession. So even if you could come in for a soft landing, it will be a long and painful process. How painful? Let's listen to you.
Warned Americans of pain earlier this year as the Fed hikes rates, but with the Fed now expected to raise rates higher than you thought when you first said that, just wondering where we are in that pain. How would you describe that to Americans if the projections on unemployment find themselves? That would be 1.6 million Americans out of jobs.
I wish there were a completely painless way to restore price stability. There isn't. What we're doing now is, it's raising interest rates for people. And so people are paying higher rates on mortgages and that kind of thing. Certainly restrictive policy stance yet, which is why we say that we would expect that ongoing hikes would be appropriate. And I would point you to the SEP, again, for our current assessment of what that peak level will be.
And again, even if they come in with a soft landing, it's going to be a long and painful process that's just going to cost the American people more money. So after projections of housing here coming up, I'm going to go ahead and get to whether or not it's more beneficial for a recession versus the soft landing.
We are seeing the effects on demand in the most interest-sensitive sectors of the economy, such as housing. Activity in the housing sector has weakened significantly, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates. Really, by the middle of next year, we should begin to see lower inflation from the housing services sector. And
finally, some really good news and truthful news. Should the housing industry be getting better by the middle of next year? Well, the answer to that question really is kind of a semi-yes, whether or not we go into a recession or a soft landing. As we have noticed with the consecutive 2 core PCE reports that came out in October and November, and the PCE report that came in for October, and the one that's going to be coming up hopefully on Friday, we are showing month over month improvements in inflation and actually year over year. And what is that actually doing? It's actually dropping mortgage interest rates. In the last 6 weeks, roughly alone, mortgage interest rates have actually came down a whole 1.25% approximately. So if the reports continue in a positive direction, we can continue to expect the markets to react and mortgage interest rates to get better. And if mortgage interest rates start getting better, you can anticipate that the stalemate that has been in real estate will start to lift.
Housing services, as I mentioned, there is good news in the pipeline as long as new housing leases show declining inflation. That will show up in the measure around the middle of next year, so that should help. Then you go to housing services. We know the story there is that housing services inflation has been very, very high and will continue to go up actually as rents expire and have to be renewed. They're going to be renewed into a market where rates are higher than they were when the original leases were signed. But we see that the new leases that the rate for new leases is coming down. So once we work our way through that backlog, that inflation will come down sometime next year.
So renters, keep that in mind. The Fed is actually anticipating that your rents actually might go down as your leases expire, but really kind of not until middle of next year. So we'll just have to keep paying attention to what's going on with that. But overall, the Fed is predicting that the housing market should at least, stabilize itself or start returning and unlocking really the stalemate by mid of next year, which is a prediction that I've also have made in several other videos here on this channel. So the interesting question that we got now really is what's going to be more beneficial for the housing market or the real estate industry moving forward? Is it going to be a recession or is it going to be a soft landing? Now, how messed up that question really is, the answer is going to be kind of shocking to you. And the answer out of that 2 questions is going to be a recession. Why? Because the Fed will have to loosen its monetary policy and quickly. And historically, that always happens in order to bring the economy back online. Now, the Fed has a lot of tools that they implement when a recession actually hits. But historically, again, just want to mention, this is normally what happens. And those trends can actually be seen here according to this graph, shaded in gray. And according to this article as well, unfortunately, all major reductions in inflation in the past 70 years have been associated with recessions. Now, of course, there are obvious drawbacks if we actually go into a recession. Like, people are going to lose their jobs. People will lose their savings if they already haven't lost their savings. But there is a major pro in that, and that is with the federal funds rate. As the Fed is forced to go ahead and reduce it, businesses will get back to business and things will start to prosper here again in the U.S. Now, is that going to take a little bit of a time? Of course. But the key here in real estate is that mortgage interest rates will come back down, and they'll generally come back down rapidly, which is good for real estate in itself. Now, will everybody be able to go out there and be able to buy just because mortgage interest rates are down low again? No, not necessarily, because we do know that the Fed has already stripped away a lot of savings from people, so it'll be hard to go ahead and make those down payments. And if somebody has lost their job, well, that speaks for itself. However, for those that still held on to their savings, didn't lose their job, and didn't take out things like credit cards or small loans, here and there, that the federal funds rate was able to affect, then those people will be in great position to go ahead and buy. So buyers, think about that. It's also worth noting that the Fed has really made it a point saying that the labor market needs to soften, that there's too many available jobs for as many people want to come in and actually fill them. So there's a lot more job vacancies out there. And the Fed has actually said in this meeting, and they're still saying even if it comes in for a soft landing, that the labor market is still relatively going to be okay. So are the chances of you, even if a recession does hit, keeping your job? More than likely, the answer to that question is yes. But also, Powell did pick on the tech industry, saying that tech has actually been taking hits overall in jobs. So keep that in mind if you are in the tech field, and you've probably already seen or felt the pressure of that. And I know I've seen it because I've got friends that are in the tech field. Now let's take a look at some of the things that could happen if we have a soft landing. Of course, it speaks for itself, softer landing. But in the meantime, it's also going to be drug out, not like a recession would, where they have to loosen their monetary policy quickly in order to get everything back online with the economy. Now we're just slowly breathing the life back into the economy. So what's that generally going to happen with your savings, wage increases, etc., is it's constantly going to chip away at it. So honestly, if I had a choice of the two, and especially if we're just talking real estate, I would much rather see a recession be able to hit, so that way mortgage interest rates can come back down, but quick. But either way, we should anticipate that with these positive reports coming out, core PCE and core CPI reports coming out, you can expect mortgage interest rates to start ticking back down, which is going to bring buyers back into this. And will they be able to soak up the inventory, say in like a really hardcore fashion? Well, I guess that just kind of depends on the market and how many people actually want to move into that market. But that is a conversation for another time and another video. But either way, do I see real estate coming back online and breaking the stalemate anywhere up until about Q2, where the Fed was actually saying, and I've said in prior videos, yes, I see it happening. So buyers, get ready. And in fact, buyers right now, if you are in the market, probably a great time to start heavily looking at properties in your target market that you want to move to. And if you are looking to move right here to the Treasure Valley, or even say the Magic Valley here in Idaho, be more than happy to represent you. So I look forward to hearing from you. Well, as always, thank you again very much, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. And of course, if you have any further questions, or you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate right here in the Treasure Valley, greater Boise, Idaho area, or the Magic Valley, which is the Twin Falls area, please feel free to reach out to me. Of course, I can be reached at area code 208-715-STAR. Again, that's 208-715-7826. And of course, if you're looking to begin your home shopping experience today, please visit my website at www.yourstarrealtor.com. Go ahead and filter in the cities that you are looking for, price points, etc. And you can also go ahead and filter it out a little bit further over here. So if you have any further questions on how to use the software, etc., please feel free to reach out to me, give me a call, and I'm more than happy to set you up on a search to show you the properties that you're looking for in your home purchase criteria. If you're also looking to move right here to the Treasure Valley from out of state, please click in the description below, download my free relocation guide, so that way you're in the know before you decide to make the move. Please also hit that subscribe button below, hit the notification bell so that you're constantly in tune with all the videos that I do come up with, and don't forget to comment. We'd definitely love to hear what you think is going to happen in the real estate markets coming up here in the near future. And of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to list them below. I always respond religiously to any comment that is below. Well, thank you again very much, everybody. I look forward to the day that we speak. I look forward to the day I call you my neighbor. God bless. Until then, thank you so much. Bye-bye.